Well, welcome everybody to Life by Life West. I'm Dr. Ron Oberstein, and with me I have Dr. Mary Oberstein with me today. Welcome, Dr. Mary.
Hello.
And Dr. Mary and I have the opportunity to interview in Life by Life West a wonderful, actually a graduate of Life West, Dr. Brandon Linatsas. So welcome to the show, Brandon.
Hey, thanks, Ron and Mary. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you here. Just for everyone to know that Brandon graduated in Life West in 2013, moved back to Nashua, New Hampshire, and he's actually a Chiro kid. So his father graduated just before Mary, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In 2000, what am I talking about? 1985? Is that what you said, 85. Brandon? 84?
Yeah, I think it was 84, 85, yeah.
Yep, from Life Chiropractic College in Marietta, Georgia. And Brandon took over, went to practice with his father in 2013. And then in 2016, you took over your dad's practice. And it was a 900 square foot practice, and he moved it to 2,500 square foot practice. And then right before COVID in March of 2020, Brandon actually moved into a 5,000 square foot building, right? And bought a place, and that's where he is right now, just doing phenomenal things in chiropractic. And Brandon, I'm really excited for our viewers to hear what you have to say. So we can jump into it right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep, we can, talk about, you built onto a 30-year practice, obviously. You took over your dad's practice. Some people go out of school, they either associate, which you did, right, for 3 years, correct? You associated with your father. But
yep.
You built onto a 30-year practice. Talk to us about that, because that's like, you had a lot of things to shift around, probably.
Sure. There was, clear pros and cons to practicing with your dad, right? Because it's a family relationship, and there was definitely some hurdles to navigate there. I wouldn't change a thing. He taught me everything I knew. I grew up in the office. I was doing leg checks at like 6 years old at my dad's needs. And I take care of patients today that knew me when I was 6 years old. And there's nothing cooler than that. And that's really such an honor. And I take care of their grandkids now, and it's really cool. Building on, where we started together, he was towards the end of his career a little bit, and I obviously was like chomping at the bit to get going in my career. So I brought a lot of new energy to the practice, and I think that was palpable by him, patients, our staff, and it just kind of like raised the vibration of the entire office from the jump there.
Yeah, and things had to shift, obviously, because, you walked into a practice that was, 30-something years old, had posters back from the 1980s, I'm sure, right?
Yep,
you came in 2013, and whole different view of chiropractic, right?
Right.
How'd that transition go?
So, my dad was always pretty strong in his philosophy. I feel pretty strong in my philosophy, and it's always growing. But, I think for anybody who's associating with somebody, that needs to be like, you got to be on the same page there, or things aren't going to work. So, the principles of chiropractic didn't change. The, how we approach growing a business and communicating those principles probably changed a little bit to a newer audience. It was interesting that I looked at numbers once from like the demographic of patients that my dad was seeing when I came into the practice, and most people kind of aged with him. These were like lifelong patients. And so most of his practice was people like 65 plus. And then I watched it, as I continued to build my side of the practice, it was younger people, 20 somethings, 30 somethings. And that was a neat transition to watch.
And Brandon, I have a question for you. It sounds like a lot of things stayed the same, and there were probably some changes as well. Did the mission change? And then to snowball on that, what's the mission statement of the office?
So our mission statement is to raise the vibration of everybody that walks through our door, even the mailman, right? So anybody we come into contact with, we want them to be vibrating at a higher level than before we talk to them. There wasn't a there wasn't a mission statement when I came into the practice, or if there was, I wasn't aware of it. I tried to, when we created our current mission statement, it was based on what are we doing right? And so without being stated or written, I think that was kind of always the mission. because that's what we did. I was looked at like, what did my dad do to build this practice, right? And I think that was it, right? Just every time you encounter somebody, you try to make their life a little bit better. Sometimes that's with your hands and your brain, and sometimes that's just a smile or a hug when they need it or whatever it is. But it's really, really important to all of us.
Yeah. So that answers, I was going to say, that answers my second question which would be what sets your office apart? And it sounds like that's what your answer would be.
Yeah, I think so. We really rally around the mission and the vision, right? Our vision is to revolutionize healthcare in our community. There's clearly a dire need for some change in our administration of healthcare in our country. And, our goal is to be an epicenter of change for that.
So Brandon, when you look at that, obviously, people can go through and say, okay, I'm going to write a mission statement and I'm going to write a vision statement. But really, they're just words, right? Until you live it. And it sounds like your office is living it. That's what it sounds like to me.
For sure.
So
For sure.
How does that look? How does that look in your office?
So when I wrote that down pretty early on in practice, raise the vibration of everybody that walks through our door. And I was afraid to tell people that. I felt like most of the mission statements you read are like kind of boilerplate, at this office, we do this. And I was like, no, this is really like our nuts and bolts. Like, this is what we do. And then once I kind of was vulnerable with my staff and said, what do you guys think about this? I know it's kind of out there. What does raising somebody's vibration mean? And they were like, no, this is it. This is what we do. And there was a shift in the culture at our office, like the very next week. We meet every week as a team. And it's very clearly everybody's mission, right? Whether that means somebody sees somebody struggling to get their coat off, an older person or something, they go around to the waiting room and help them get their coat off or put it on, or my staff will walk somebody out to the car if it's snowy, whatever it takes. But they've adopted the mission, they live the mission, and people know it. And that's really what matters to people, is how you make them feel.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Do your patients know your mission statement?
They do. So in the newest new space, I'm printing it. I'm going to have a huge on the wall. So it's kind of sprinkled throughout the office, but it's not like in your face. And I really want it to be. So yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah. And it's funny, just when you talk about it, it's like you vibrate.
Yeah. And my staff will start, like, we have little chalkboards and whiteboards around the office where we just write like positive messages and stuff. And as soon as we adopted this, I started seeing that come up all around. Like, that's something I would do. I wouldn't expect somebody else to do that. And that means a lot to me.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I mean, it's like, every book you read talks about defining your mission, defining your vision, defining this stuff, but living it and really bringing it forward, right? And it's so simple, it's like, it could be the best person you can possibly be to everybody else, whatever it is, right? But I love that it defines who you are and who your office is, right?
For sure.
It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. Share with us, how about some challenges, like what were, obviously it's not like you just walked out and everything was handed to you on a golden platter. I mean, dude, you went from 900 square feet to now you're in 5,000 square feet, and the 5,000 square feet you did before a frickin' country lockdown, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But what were some of the challenges that you encountered? And your challenge might not be a challenge to someone else. It doesn't matter. And it could be a big thing to someone else. And then what'd you do to overcome them?
Sure. So I think early on, when I joined my dad in practice and I start, there was always like a vague exit strategy for him. It came sooner because of health reasons than either of us had anticipated. But, people become very accustomed to who their chiropractor is. And, a lot of my dad's patients had seen him for decades. And so, a few days he wasn't there and I was going to be taking care of them today. They were pretty hesitant to that, right? I was always going to be compared to what my dad was and how he did things. So that was a bit of a challenge. I did he taught me most of what I knew about chiropractic before chiropractic school. So we were similar in a lot of ways, but I, of course, learned some new things in school. And just being able to communicate, right? If somebody had an objection to me, just because of who I was and I wasn't my dad, right? Overcoming those objections and learning how to help them feel heard. Like, yeah, I understand. I'm not my dad, but why don't you give this a shot? I'm pretty, we're going to make this work, and I care about you, and we're going to, fix you up. That was a hurdle to overcome for sure. And of course, now we have the hurdle of, COVID-19. That's a big challenge, but, we need to find new mediums to communicate to people through.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question for you, because when you talk about challenges and, people think, oh man, chiro kids, they got it so easy and yada, yada. It's very different walking into a practice where there's just another doctor who's not related to you, right? They don't expect you to be the same.
Right.
As compared to a chiro kid walking into their parents' practice, whether it's their mom or dad. It doesn't matter if a new male graduate walks into their mom's practice, or a female graduate walks into their dad's practice, or male and male, or female and female. Mm-hmm. They're still expecting this similarity, almost like there's this genetic, transmission that happens in the DNA that you're supposed to be just like dad, right?
Right. For sure.
And that's a challenge, right?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. I used to hear it a lot. Well, your father used to do it like this. And and I had to learn, how to gingerly say, like, well, I do it like this. Let's see how that works for you. That definitely was a challenge. But there wasn't a lot of fallout from that. There was a learning curve for me and for patients. But there wasn't a lot of fallout in terms of patients didn't leave practice because I took over. There was a change in their doctor. Yeah. And one thing I've realized moving forward, part of my vision is to grow my practice even more, and maybe even open up different offices down the road. But it really made me realize that you can't have a personality-based success plan. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I can only see so many patients. So people need to come for the systems and like how we do things and the mission of the office, and not just to see Dr. Brandon, because I can only be in one place at a time. I also have a family at home. So that's been another challenge, is like balancing time at home, time working on the business and growing the practice, and being in the trenches, as they say, which doesn't feel like trenches. That's my favorite part, is taking care of people. But I do recognize that to hit the ultimate vision, I have to scale that back a little bit to be able to work on the big picture stuff.
Yeah. Mary?
And I was going to ask the same question about the balance. Like, what do you do personally to keep yourself in balance or grounded? And obviously you have a family, but is there anything you do, whether it's meditating or goal setting? What is it that you do that's worked?
Two big things that I do. Number one, I meditate every morning. And it's nothing special or fancy, but every morning I spend 5 minutes just meditating on the day, what I'm grateful for, what the day is going to look like in my mind. Number two, a huge thing that I did and has changed the way I operate in a big way, is I got invited to join this mastermind of people. There were 6 people, and they were all own different kinds of businesses. This wasn't a pay-to-play thing. It was just 6 people really focused on the success of their business. And we meet once a week, really early in the morning. We set goals every year, and every week that we meet, we're holding ourselves accountable to those goals, right?
So
Brandon, you said go ahead.
No, so around that, these aren't chiropractors then?
No, and I think that's one of the key elements of it for me.
So tell us, what other businesses are there?
So currently I'm in the mastermind is a realtor who was the youngest licensed realtor in the state of New Hampshire, and he's doing like $40 million in sales this year or something. A gentleman who's a pharmacist, but didn't want to be a pharmacist and started a chain of restaurants that have been incredibly successful. There's somebody who's she and her husband owned a t-shirt screen printing business that's really taken off like nationally. Somebody that owns some CrossFit gyms. and an attorney. So it's a really cool dynamic. And the most valuable thing is, chiropractors, we talk to other chiropractors about how we do business, and we do business in the chiropractic lane. And like, when you talk to somebody else about how they run their business, they're like, why do you do this that way? Well, it's just the way chiropractors do things. Well, and changing some of those things that are just the way we do things has been huge for me, because sometimes there's a better way to do it. And we just don't think outside of our box and the way we learned and the way our parents did it.
Yeah. And on the other note, they hear what your mission is, to raise the vibration of every person who walks in your door. They might not ever think, a lawyer might not ever think like that, right? Like,
Right.
And now they're learning. It's so cool. And this wasn't set up as a referral group. It was set up as a mastermind group, right?
Totally. Not based on, not based on referrals or getting business or anything like that. This is about, we set goals. We set goals for our business, family, spiritual goals, fitness goals, and financial goals, and so we just were, the entire month of November and part of December, we're just like refining our goals for 2021 right now, so we can get a jump start week one at tackling them.
That is so cool. I know that success leaves clues.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're around other successful people, you'll always see the clues, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is such a great tip, for our viewers to hear that, it's not about always looking for referrals or I'm going to go network with these people. Continue to do those things. They're great things, but get your success group, the mastermind group together, non-necessarily non-chiropractors, and say, what can we do and how can we make the world better? Mary, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, have you been with the same group for a long time, or have there been different groups?
So I'd say there's been two major iterations. When I first got invited to be in this group, I was with a bunch of people, 5 other people who were not the end of their career, but like they'd been to the mountaintop of their career. They were killing it. I really looked up to these people, and I was honored to just be, asked to do this. I didn't even know they did this as a group, but they were like, we really see something in you. We want to invite you. Why don't you come Thursday morning and see what it's all about? And I did that. And then, they all got to the point where their goals were getting smaller and smaller because they had been to the precipice. They were just kind of, the goal was like, I want to buy a boat this year. It wasn't, I want to like grow my business 50% or something. So they kind of finally backed off of the mastermind, and two and a half years ago, I think we kind of did a new version of it and invited some new people. 2 of us that were in it from the previous one carried it on, and we're dramatically younger in business than we were before, which is interesting. There are times we definitely miss the been there, done that of the people later on in their careers.
So would you recommend that? Like if I'm a relatively young practitioner, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe out with my first, 0 to 10 years, 15 years, would you recommend getting with people successful, of course, but of like age and like place in life, or what would you recommend?
I think a variation is important. I think that number one thing is, like you said, success leaves clues. Like you want to be with people who are as hungry as you are, or at once were as hungry as you are, and we're successful about it. So everyone has to be on the same page that we are committed to success. We're not here to fart around. We're trying to, set goals and hit them. And people that you're able to be vulnerable with, like we have what's the word I'm looking for here? Like privacy, but we don't talk to anybody else about the stuff we talk about there. So we can be very vulnerable with each other.
Non-disclosure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thank you. I think a variety of ages. It's interesting being with a bunch of young people. We have newer ideas. We're more focused on technology and marketing online versus some of the other things the last group was doing. And
as an offshoot of that, I guess I got another question. I'm so intrigued by this. do you also refer to each other, or do you co-op like around town and do things together? Like at the restaurant, if you wanted to do a dinner talk, you'd use his restaurant, or you the gym or whatever. Do you guys kind of coalesce your businesses to work with each other?
We can, and we have. It doesn't, if that happens, it happens like organically and kind of offline. We don't use the group, to promote one another, but a lot of times it does work out nice. Like sometimes the restaurant chain it's called Mr. Max, it's macaroni and cheese. And so I'll say like, hey, Harry, can I buy, $100 worth of $5 coupons so I can give it to families, if they're going out for dinner or something, just little stuff like that. The CrossFit gym owners, I do a lot of stuff with them just because it fits nicely with chiropractic, but no, not by design. Everything happens organically. Of course, if I get my t-shirts made, I'm going to use the gal from my group, but there's no like mandates or stipulations that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brandon, this is kind of putting you on the spot, but can you recall, because I'm intrigued as well with this group. Yeah. Can you recall one thing that you talked about to this group that all chiropractors do, that they said to you, why do you do that? And it was like a light bulb went off and you said, gosh, I do it because just chiropractors do this. And it was something that you changed.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of like just marketing in general. And maybe this was just specific to my practice and my mindset at the time. But, when I joined my dad in practice, and I guess it was 2013. I mean, we thought we were like doing a big deal because we had a half page in the yellow pages, like, so like they really opened my eyes to, like different businesses, like a restaurant, or before I was with a guy who was a mortgage specialist, right? They had like this knob, this dial. It was how much money do they pour into marketing for the year? And that directly affected their, bottom line at the end of the year. And I never, in school, I never learned about that. It wasn't really something my dad and I ever talked about. But why don't we advertise like anybody else?
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that they turned that knob up, which of course is more investment, but their business grew, and it was like a 1-for-1 thing. And I think that was an eye opener for me.
That's great.
And I wonder, Brandon, if that comes down to trust, because they have a product that they sell, right? And so when they dial that knob up, right, they just expect to sell more product, right? Mm-hmm. And I just wonder this, and I'm just throwing this out to our audience and to the three of us. Our product, it's chiropractic, but truthfully, and it's us. Because they can go to a lot of people, right? For that, right? It's not like, well, Italian food, Mexican food, I'll pick which one I want. Because they go to many different restaurants, they go to many different, but they go to different lawyers depending on what they're going to the lawyer for. But they're only going to come to one chiropractor most of the time, right?
Yep.
This is a specialty thing. So I just wonder if we don't dial it up a little bit because it's us who we're selling and we're the product, and we might not trust that as much, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question. It's a good question for everyone.
No, yeah, that is a really good point. And it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before about a systems-based practice versus a personality-based.
Yeah, it's exactly it. I just want to share one thing, and then I know we're hitting our witching time to kind of wrap up, but I want to share something because you kind of talked about it earlier, and about, they wanted, like your dad was in practice, well, I want to see your dad or whatever, that kind of thing, right? And, Mary, we had so many times with associate doctors, probably our kids, I think with our kids, they probably said, we'd rather see your kid than you, because they just, same thing. They watched you, Brandon, growing up. I want him. He's the new guy. But with associates, it was like, remember they'd say, well, I don't, the worst thing we would get would be, well, if I don't get to see you, Dr. Ron, or I don't get to see you, Dr. Mary, then I'm going to what? What they used to say to us, Mary?
I'm going to go find somebody else.
Yeah. And we'd always say to them, what? Wait a minute, we got a new doctor here.
So you're going to go find another new doctor when you're going to use our new doctor? It didn't make any sense.
That's a really great point.
It was really, but that was their mindset. And they weren't going anywhere. It was the threat, right? It was if I don't get my way, right? That kind of thing. And we'd look at them and say, like, okay, good. You're going to go find someone completely new in a completely new office where they don't know you, and you get great results here, and you don't want to see our new, get in there and see them, because you're going to find that they're awesome, that kind of thing. It was just,
and we'd say, and they have access to us. So, they know you without even ever adjusting you. They already know about you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting, our patient mentalities, but it's real for them, right? It's real. So for our young doctors out there who are going to go work for someone else, it's such a great answer to be able to say, good, you want to go find someone completely new in an all new office and not know what you're going to get, but you know what you're going to get here, and there's access to more doctors. It's phenomenal. But anyways, it's been a pleasure. Go on, Mary.
I have a question, Brandon. If you could go back and talk to yourself when you were a student at Life West, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah. Keep persevering, keep pressing on. Chiropractic school was one of the most fun times of my life. It was also one of the most stressful times of my life. I remember, not even pouring my coffee into a cup. I was just drinking out of the pot, studying. And I look back on it fondly, but were there times when it got really, really hard and stressful? Yeah. And just that it's so good on the other side. Every day, I feel like I was born to do what I'm doing. And that's I hope everybody who graduates has that feeling. And, just keep pressing on, young Brandon, and it's totally, totally worth it.
And what about new Dr. Brandon, being a year or two out? What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah. Sticking to what right? Where we come out out of Life West, really good, capable chiropractors, and we know how to communicate chiropractic. And there's a lot of different things you can sell and do and all these things, but really people want chiropractors and people who can adjust and take really good care of them, and stick to that, hold the line, because people are, if you shout loud enough, people are going to come find you for that.
That's great.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Brandon, we're gonna wrap it up, but I want to ask, is there anything that you'd like to share? It's on your heart, whatever, that you'd like to just share to our audience before we close up today? Those are great questions.
If we talked about it briefly, but I think one of the most important things that we don't always learn in school or even think about is that interaction with the patients inside your office and how you make them feel. And if you feel like you should do something and maybe you're afraid to, just do it. Do the right thing, and don't ever be afraid to do the right thing. I've never regretted it. And, be brave and vulnerable enough to do what you feel in your heart is the right thing. And I don't think it'll ever steer you wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's in life also, isn't it? It's so beautiful. Well, Brandon, I want to thank you for joining Dr. Mary and myself and spending the last 30 minutes with us or so, and on Life by Life West, sharing from your heart what you do, how you got to where you are right now, dropping those little tidbits of pearls of wisdom. And there was a lot that you said that I always tell our viewers to make sure you go in and listen again, because you'll pick up something that next time. We're going to have your website on the bottom so people can reach out to you or look and see what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, brother, because you're doing great things. 900 square feet to 2,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet. We might be at 10,000 square feet one day. I don't know. The way you're going, your volume just keeps doing that. But thank you. I really want to thank you, and I want to thank our viewers for joining in with us today to be able to transport ourselves over to Nashua, New Hampshire with Dr. Brandon Linatsas. And make sure you keep coming back. I want to thank Dr. Mary for being with us today, and make sure you keep coming back and listening to our Life by Life West. We'll be at you every other week. And just keep remembering, live your life from above down, inside out. Hug those people that you're with. Keep sharing the love. And as Dr. Brandon talked about, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to go to that place where to do what you need to do to be who the real you is, as long as it's appropriate and as long as you're doing it from your heart, right? So thank you for tuning in. Until our next version of Life by Life West, the three of us will bid you adieu, and we'll see you at the next Life by Life West.